power on.
We're only going to see this continue over time. Companies are going to continue to seek more data about you.
Well, no one likes robocalls, junk mail, or people trying to sell you stuff at your front door, right? But it turns out you can thank a government agency for a lot of those annoyances, the DMV. In 2017, the DMV got more than $77 million selling things like your address and phone number to third parties. In all, more than 30 private companies like mail marketing firms, bill collectors, and insurance companies have access to your data. And all of this is completely legal. This is especially concerning for one woman who just moved to Florida to live with her twin sister.
We take her to get her ID because she's a Medicaid patient. This is what she starts getting. This is just a sample. We've got a whole box.
Who has her information here in Florida?
The only one that had it was the DMV.
So that woman says they've gotten all of it, the robocalls, the junk mail, all in her sister's name, and salespeople showing up at their front door. An attorney that specializes in privacy law says none of this really surprises him.
Companies are essentially paying for information, for leads, lead generation.
And again, all of this is legal. In fact, the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles says it must provide this information under the law. That, for some, makes it even more concerning because there's really no way to opt out of this. But there are some steps you can take to protect your privacy. If you want to limit the number of marketers contacting you, experts recommend using a secondary email and declining to give your phone number to government agencies whenever that's possible.
Earth, 2019. Dominant species, human. Galactic potential rating, 0. Cultural affiliation, combination of government and global businesses, corporatism, legacy institution. Species still conservative, superstitious, and religious. Ecologically illiterate, largely unaware of cosmological foundation of love. Level of technological dependence is disturbingly higher than the galactic standard. Species distracted and behavior controlled by technology companies. System error. Advanced concepts detected beyond normal human levels. New galactic potential rating, over 9,000. Transmission type, podcast. Host, the Man of Tomorrow, Brian Sovryn. Source, Sovryn Tech.
Coming in hotter than Dirk Benedict and a Colonial Viper, and I said Dirk Benedict, God damn it! I did not say, yeah, you know what I mean. Woo, you big fans. You Battlestar fans, you know what I'm talking about. And anyway, this ain't Battlestar Galactica, baby, even though I'd love if it was. The 78 or 79 version, whatever you want to run with. That, fine. None of that new horse shit. And, you know, I found out that they are, did I talk about this? I might have talked about this on a Wednesday Q&A. And of course, if you're wondering why this is coming out on Cyber Monday, baby, it's because of some travel that I had to do. And so I released some content early for the Zomia 1 Underground, which you can sign up for at zomia1.com. And, you know, due to that travel, we end up coming out on Monday. But I can't remember if I talked about this, but there is the guy who makes Mr. Robot, which I reviewed that show, back when season 1 finished up. Not a fan. I know everybody was expecting me to, to say, oh, wow, this is so great to, have a really serious hacking show and blah, blah, blah. And no, no, you know what? Because a lot of your top guys, like in security research or hackers, even though that term is so convoluted, and has been for, decades, as long as I've been alive. We're pretty clean cut and straight laced, but fuck, if the media can't help but show that, or try and portray us as a bunch of, and look, I don't care if people do drugs, whatever, rock and roll, okay? I'm an anarchist. Go for it. But, the media just constantly shows us as like these really, edgy, like motorcycle jacket wearing. I mean, I do wear a leather jacket. I do wear all black. I guess I got that part down. I do wear a hoodie a lot. Well, if I can find one that fits me. But anyway, or like doing drugs or just being like mentally fucked up and all kind of strange. We might talk about a mentally fucked up and kind of strange individual during the This Week in Blockchain segment, if we get to that this week. But I get so annoyed by that. That's constantly the portrayals that somehow like, that hackers are like these disturbed individuals. When no, or security researchers or whatever, like are somehow like these oddities. I mean, in fact, a guy who inspired me, we're going to get into during the climax, the end of the show, where I get to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. When we get to that, I'm going to do a review of a movie that I saw recently, actually, while traveling. In fact, it was fortuitous where I happened to see it, but it was what was it? Ford versus Ferrari. Now, I'm kind of a car guy. Like, I'm knowledgeable about cars. I know that we're opening this baby up all over the place. We're going to get into some great tech news. We actually, cows. I'm not kidding. What could you're wondering, what could cows possibly have to do with tech? You just wait, because it's coming. But anyway, I saw Ford versus Ferrari mainly because a guy who who's a personal hero of mine. I had the great pleasure of actually getting to meet him at the Unlocked event from LastPass in October. Steve Gibson of the Security Now podcast, which is my favorite podcast. I like to think, I kind of hope that people who are podcasters actually listen to other podcasts. Maybe they don't. Maybe some of these other asshats are so vain. Not to say I'm not fairly vain, but I'm not vain like as in looks, right? We're everywhere. Anyway, I listen to podcasts, and my favorite is Security Now. But Steve Gibson, security researcher. Top of his game, and a show, Security Now. You better believe there's at least quite a few thousand, if not hundreds of thousands, of people who might get described as hackers that listen to that show. You bet your goddamn ass they do. But he's, a super healthy dude, I don't know if he even drinks, or I don't think he really does. I don't think he does drugs of any type or doesn't smoke. He's all on like the keto diet and everything. Super fucking healthy and just a very straight-laced, awesome guy. And so, it kills me. That, and in fact, even at like the Unlocked event that I just mentioned, you go there and all these people, they look like fairly normal. You see them walking down the street, you wouldn't think twice. But oh no. The entertainment industry has to be like, no, hackers are really fucked up people. They're drug addled. They have multiple personality disorder isn't what the DSM calls it anymore, is it? Whatever. But they have some, I don't know, they're schizo, or they come up with some other like crazy names. And that's part of the reason. As nice as it was to have Christian Slater back acting. Okay. That's one of the reasons I just could not stand Mr. Robot. I'm like, oh, that's nice. You got the tech right, but you got everything else wrong. And it's all for just, and ultimately I can say it's the people that watch that shit that are, well, I don't want to go there. Anyway, the show is horrible. Point being, the guy that made that is now making a reboot of Battlestar Galactica amazingly. Maybe I talked about this even on a Prime episode of Sovereign Tech, but amazingly for NBC's own streaming service, which fuck knows we need more of those, called Peacock, which the name alone blows my mind. Like what marketing genius I say that facetiously. What marketing genius it wants people to walk around saying, hey, did you see Peacock last night? Or did you watch that Peacock show? Well, let's just say it. It sounds like the saying big cock, right? It's like the Katy Perry song. She has that song Peacock, and it's all, the lyric goes, I want to see your peacock, right? And what's that about? I want to see your big cock. You tell just right from the lyrics. It was the dumbest move in the world. But anyway, this moron is remaking Battlestar Galactica, and it's so funny because Now, I mean, longtime listeners of Sovereign Tech, and this has a point. We're going to get somewhere with all this. Trust me. Longtime listeners know I cannot stand Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, the newer one. I mean, it's horrible. It's easily one of the worst shows ever. It ended terribly, just like Game of Thrones did, and I hate that show too. And I've told all of you, I said, these people have no plan. They're making you think they have a plan, and it's exciting because you're looking for the payoff, and then when you get the payoff, it sucks. Look, folks, most people, and I get tired of people still like praising these shows, and they're just like, oh, well, just the last season sucked, but everything else is great. If you read a book, and that's the style in which these shows get made, right? Is in like novels. If you read a book and the ending was shit, you would say the book is shit. Yes, you would. Because it's all about being a cohesive story. Great writing, you can't call it great writing if there isn't a cohesive whole. You can't. Well, you could say, oh, there's great moments or something. Well, then if we can enjoy great moments, then guess what? There's a billion great movies out there that everybody constantly trashes on. But no, you trash on those movies because the ending sucks, right? I mean, or because there isn't some kind of payoff there. You can't have it both ways, folks. I mean, you really can't. And oh man, we reviewed. Speaking of streaming, anyway, the Battlestar Galactica thing. What I was going to say was, it's so great to have the new BSG fans, as in the ones that are in the Ron Moore show. Now they know how I feel. They're all pissed off because, there's going to be a remake again, even though now the guy, I don't know what the fuck his name is, Sam something, or maybe, I don't know. But the Mr. Robot guy, now he's saying that, oh no, it's not really a remake. Bullshit. That's because they didn't know what to do about the fan backlash. If they even had if this guy even has an idea of what he wants to make anyway, they were probably gauging social media. And this is part of the tech point that I want to get to here opening up. Again, we got great stories to get into, but let's talk about this. You on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on whatever dumb TikTok, I don't know, whatever dumb shit you're on. Okay. And social media is just that. You are part of a live experiment. Okay. A running experiment. You are guinea pigs. Okay. And they are using you. They make little announcements. I mean, like, look what happened with Sonic the Hedgehog, right? They put out the trailer. And then everybody's like, what the hell? That's not Sonic the Hedgehog. And then they figured, oh, well, we actually need to spend $80 million and change all of this. Because, our live guinea pig focus group was not pleased. Now, that doesn't mean you always get what you want. Okay? But understand that, I mean, it speaks against these people as artists. Because if they have to ultimately appease you, they have no actual vision, right? They're not J. Michael Straczynski. They're not Glenn Larson. And Ron Moore had no vision, has no vision, never had a vision. Fuck him. But these people, they're not telling stories that they have come up with. They are not writers. They are not story creators. They are not creators. They are gauging, okay, what does the Twitterverse like? What does Facebook like? And they just listen to you, and then they put together this mishmash of, appealing to the lowest common denominator or whatever, and then they put that out there as art. When, you could say that it's some kind of collaborative art, perhaps, if you're into that, but I think when you look at a lot of things today, a lot of people are saying, what is wrong? Movies just don't feel like there's as much on the line. They're not as risky and blah, blah, blah. And all that comes down to that they are some kind of strange, not collaborative art where, you like everybody. I remember we used to do this in school where everybody would write a book, or everybody, like one person would write one paragraph, then another person had to pick up on that. And then you'd end up with this really weird thing. But then you would never compare that to Dune or Lord of the Rings or, pick your novel or the Foundation series or Fahrenheit 451, okay, or Star Maker by Olaf Stapledon or something like that. Any of those collaborative pieces of art, you would never say that, oh, wow, that is just such fucking genius. No, it was fun and you did this thing, but that's it. But that's what everything is now. And we're in an age where there just really isn't much in the way of great art anymore. Anyway, that's all stuff we talk about on Q&As and everything. And I could get into the whole streaming service bullshit, but I mean, you have to understand that, and if you're the kind of person, and you probably are, who is sitting at your computer, or maybe you're on your smartphone, I'm sorry, maybe you are, and you're just like rubbing your hands. You're just rubbing your hands and just saying, God damn it, all these fucking idiots, and you're looking, and you're seeing something like, how does Billie Eilish not know who Van Halen is? You can't go to the grocery store unless, without hearing Van Halen and knowing who the fuck it is, because you can't help but pay attention to that great hook, from whatever, I don't know, Panama or Jump, or take your pick. Okay, even though I like Sammy Hagar better. But, whatever, okay? You can't do that without knowing who the hell Van Halen is. But I mean, that just goes to show that these people who are supposedly giving art to us and supposed to appeal to us, I mean, I guess they don't even go shopping. Or they've never gone shopping, even when they were little kids or something, and they have no goddamn clue, and they're so out of touch with reality or anything actually around them, or what, the everyday real person, okay, not some asshat in ivory towers, but some real person actually listens to. I mean, it blows the goddamn mind. But you're rubbing your hands, thinking, look, all these idiots, holy shit, how are they even able to get online? Right? Those are the people that are controlling in a very real way, or they are the, not the benchmark, the measuring stick. They are the barometer. That's what I want. They are the barometer for the art that gets made. And so you wonder why all this shit's so stupid today? Well, that's because it's getting made for a bunch of fucking morons. There you go. So, that said, this is, how about some good news? I think this is actually good news. Let's get into that. We won't get into the whole streaming service nonsense. We won't talk about, any of that. Did I say earlier, like I started bringing up Steve Gibson, and I was saying that Steve Gibson is the reason that I went and saw Ford versus Ferrari, because he said it was the perfect movie. And I was like, well, fuck, if my hero Steve Gibson's saying that, I got to see this. I got to know what this is about. And that is why I ended up seeing it. We're going to get into that review later. But, a little bit of good news here. And you can find out whether or not I agree with Steve Gibson. But the good news is that I got to believe. So Windows 10 version 1909, the latest version, the latest major update to Windows 10. Not that it's even really necessarily getting announced like that. Very quietly, I feel like it got released. It is out there now. You can add it as an optional update. And that's so funny because this is supposed to be a major two-a-year revision of Windows 10. This is supposed to keep you excited about Windows 10. This is effectively like if you're using Android 9 on your smartphone, this is like getting Android 10, right? This is supposed to be a major, major deal. I mean, they used to give these things names, right? Like the Creators Update and whatever else, and you get all these new features. And this is the quietest rollout I've heard from Microsoft in a long time. And I think they know, and of course this has been talked about, and already there are people talking about the flaws that are happening, that Windows 10 version 1909 is already crashing systems. I haven't heard anything necessarily as bad as it like deleting documents, which there were previous Windows 10 updates, and I mean full on, like version updates. I don't just mean the, Patch Tuesday. I haven't heard anything necessarily like that. But version 1909, again, it is listed. I can see it. In fact, I'm looking at this on the Windows machine next to me. There it is. It's saying optional updates available. Feature update to Windows 10 version 1909. It is not forcing it anymore. It's where before they were forcing it. Let me tell you, that screen has been on that computer for a good little while now. And it's going to stay there because I don't trust. And I was one of the people who hasn't had an issue really with any of the, or with much of the major version updates that have come out. And I'm using a computer that originally had Windows 7 on it, actually, of all things. So, I mean, it's older hardware. If something was going to run into an issue, you'd think it would be that. I think this has... it has a it might even be a 5th generation i7 in it. I mean, if there's going to be issues, this would be a computer that would have it. But I've never had it. It's a Dell. I mean, that has its own problems, but no, Dells aren't like that anymore necessarily. But yeah, I am in no hurry to update this thing. Eventually, I'm sure it will, but what's interesting that's happening, talk about a thermometer check, okay, or a barometer, is it seems like most people, I mean, for Microsoft themselves to not force this on you is interesting in and of itself. But for a lot of people are like, I'm going to hold off on this one. Now, I mean, the funny thing is that if everybody doesn't install it right away, we probably won't find the problems, right, that are occurring. But, the whole fast ring, slow ring users, the Windows insiders and everything, I mean, that project basically has failed. But to take this to the good news, because that all sounds like bad news, right? No, not really. To take this to the good news, people seem to finally really be tired of Microsoft. And they seem to, I mean, they're not giving up Microsoft Office because who can? It's so deeply entrenched in the enterprise space, you can't do anything about it. Not yet, anyway. But people really do seem to finally say, yeah, you know what? I'm fucking done with Windows. Because, the Windows 7 security updates have basically come to an end. You can pay a premium, and the longer you use Windows 7, the higher that premium gets to keep getting those updates, boy, if that doesn't show a scam. Okay, wait, Microsoft, if you're making security updates to Windows 7, for enterprise users, there's really no reason you can't just make those available to everybody. I mean, I get it. They're trying to force your hand and get you out of Windows 7, but that speaks to the fact that that's even offered. That speaks to the fact that, look, people just want shit that works. They don't want to be in the constant growth and new version scam that powers so much of Silicon Valley. And it is, I mean, it's a scam. And we've talked about this many times on the show. Where even, like, why is there a new version of Android every year? There shouldn't be a reason to have a completely new version of Windows or of Android. That's all to please investors. And that's true for iOS. Frankly, it's true for Windows. It's true for all of them. It's to please investors, to make them think like, oh, the company is doing something new, worthwhile, and they're growing. When, frankly, it's horseshit. Okay? There's most of the time, there's no reason that any forward-going security updates, which is really all your basic, computer operating system needs, okay, especially for the average person, there's really no reason, for it to be, that say new updates, security patches and so on can't go back multiple generations. And often they do. I mean, like, there's feature sets for, say, like Android that will go back to Nougat, to Android 7, right? Or even further back than that. And I mean, sometimes you do some rebuilding of infrastructure and you try to separate stuff out, and those are genuine developments, and those things happen. But notice how long it takes for those kind of larger leaps in operating system functionality or operating system styling or programming. Notice how long that takes for those to come out. Sometimes, it's on the order of 4, 5, 6 years. So maybe you only need a new operating system, kind of like how Windows used to be, where it was, maybe 5, 6, hell, even longer, 7 years or something. And even then, it would get supported well into a decade, if not longer. I mean, how long did it take for Windows XP to, quote unquote, finally die? Right? It's an absolute scam. And people are tired of it. And then they hear about things like we've recommended on this show many times. I mean, this is an obvious thing. We certainly go much deeper than this into the technicals, but basically, a lot of people are saying, yeah, you know what? Gonna go to Linux, gonna install Linux now. And as long as we, and that's exciting, right? It's exciting that people are tired of Microsoft. They're tired of Windows. They're tired of the bullshit that's going on, and they just want their system to fucking work, right? And there's whole generations of us that had just wanted our systems to work, to just do what they're fucking, what we tell them to do, what they're programmed to do, and for them to just stay on and rock and roll, and keep going for years, if not decades, whatever. And of course, in computer or, in tech parlance, they're known as Linux users. I mean, Linux really is to the point, okay, that I think you can install Linux faster and, dare I say, easier than you can Windows. I mean, it really is to that point. We've just got to convince people. We got to show them, and we've got to let them know. That's all it takes. Is just they've got to know that the stigma around Linux. I mean, if you want, the nice thing about Linux is that if you are a power user, go for it. And you can get as nitty gritty as you want on an install, right? And of course, we have so many different distros. We can rock whatever one, meets our varying thresholds and tolerances. Okay, which is great. But, the average person could install Ubuntu and have a day. And do, and now, and as far as gaming, of course, Microsoft's killing PC gaming. And I don't mean that in a good way. I mean, like, they're offing it. Now, obviously, they want people to get on. And we talked about this, like, with Microsoft Edge. Why would Microsoft Edge go to Linux? That's because I think that Microsoft Edge is going to be key to, the xCloud game streaming service from Microsoft. Okay, because they'll get away from hardware entirely. But look, there's a lot of us who do shit, and they just want to do their little things, and they have their favorite software that they use and so on. And yeah, maybe we're going to have to learn some different programs. Okay, like maybe you're not necessarily going to use, well, Photoshop's the big one, but maybe you're not going to use, I don't know, Paint.net, or maybe you're not going to use whatever the fuck it is that whoever's been using for the past 20, 30 years, and you're just going to say, look, if you want to stop dealing with the crap, the constant updates, your computer not, having to go through the update process for the better part of a day or two, or hell, even a week if you're lucky, or, your files getting deleted, or, new feature sets, or suddenly, why the hell is there a live tile of Candy Crush? Or wait, I got used to live tiles and now Microsoft says they're gone, when they were a major feature of Windows 10. Why has this gone away? What the fuck's going on here? And just give people a good, stable desktop operating system, that being Linux. We just got to convince them. They just need to see, like, live demos. What is this thing in business that everybody does now? Oh, a pop-up store. Because everything's fucking ephemeral and nothing's meant to actually last. So pop-up stores are a big deal. Let's do pop-up shops where we just go through a Linux install. We go through an Ubuntu install or something. Or if you want to do Mint, but I would rather go with Ubuntu. And we've talked about the issues with Linux Mint throughout 2019, or at some point in 2019. I know we talked about that. It has to do with the developers. But anyway, show them how to install Ubuntu, show them how it goes. And really, Windows is fucking up everything. Microsoft's fucking up everything with Windows. And it does seem like people are finally realizing it. And even Windows, this would be kind of punny, even Windows defenders, not Windows Defender. Of course, that's Microsoft Defender now, right? Or whatever the fuck they're calling it now. Even defenders of using Windows are finally saying, okay, even gamers, right? Even PC gamers are finally coming out and saying, okay, this is getting ridiculous. Like, Microsoft just has to stop. Can we just have a monastic order running Windows and, developing Windows and just leaving it alone and just, whatever. And I don't get it. Like, I don't understand why Microsoft doesn't even do that. Just stop changing it. Tell your investors, Windows isn't our business anymore. Our business is Office 365, and then, excite them with xCloud, right? Cloud gaming and all this, even though the clusterfuck that Google Stadia is. We'll talk about that on the Gaming Grid, another show that I do on Zomia 1. We'll get into that, because that launch, was a disaster. An absolute disaster. It's still a disaster. It's bad. And I don't trust cloud gaming. I recognize it's a paradigm shift, but I don't trust it. I don't want it. I have no interest in it whatsoever. But that's another subject for another show. Point being, tell the investors that, and then just put out just a clean version of Windows 10 that isn't centered around advertising or using a bunch of odd-ass services or whatever, and just leave it alone. Make it as simple as possible, and just leave it alone. Put out the security updates and everything, right? Come on. Your Xbox division, xCloud, and Office 365, they got to be able to afford the developers for Windows, or do what I've been predicting, and maybe this is where we're heading. I still think it's where we're heading. Do what I've been saying for a long time, and what I predicted years ago, actually about 6 years ago, and Sovryn Tech's been running for almost a decade now. Okay, just open source Windows. If there's any reason that they don't do that Microsoft doesn't just completely open source Windows, I think it's because they are terrified for people to find out just how many holes are in that leaky ship. And and people would probably find out that for so long, maybe that's why they're stripping features. 'Cause that way, when they do finally open it up, people won't notice that, wow, the NSA and whatever other alphabet soup organization around the world was really owning our ass, anybody that happened to be running Windows. I could totally believe that that's the situation going on. But it's getting that bad. So just once you open it up, then you can leave it to the community to fucking develop for it. And then you don't, frankly, it's out of your hands at that point. Not that I expect Microsoft to make good business decisions. I had hope a few years ago for a little while, then OneDrive Gate happened, and, well, we all learned that that's just not the case. But anyway, maybe it has to do something with HoloLens. I don't know. But even that seems to have fallen by the wayside. I don't know what the fuck this company's doing. But all of that said, it does seem that people are really, really finally tired of Windows specifically. But also, thankfully, they're not saying, so I'm going to go buy a Mac. Nobody's saying that, right? Because the Mac faithful, or the Apple faithful, but especially those that use a Mac. I mean, because I think the bulk of the Apple faithful are just, iPhone users, that it'd be a miracle if they even had a computer. But regardless, okay, the Mac faithful, as in people who love their MacBooks and all this, they're complaining about the quality of MacBooks right and left, or the problems with the keyboard, or, the operating system is shit the bed at some point, or whatever. I mean, they're not loving their Macs like they did, 5-6 years ago, or particularly maybe 10 years ago. And a lot of people were jumping ship from Mac to Windows, but then Windows is fucking up so bad. I think, again, we're starting to get, and I know people have been saying this forever, right? This year is the year of Linux. I mean, when I was a teenager, people were saying that. You understand? And I'm 38. But I think now we're finally getting to the point where really there is a groundswell of people who are saying we are just so fucking tired of Windows, and they're past Apple users, and they don't even want that. There's those two, right? That's just part of it. But everybody's just like, oh, we're done. And this could be why Chromebooks are so popular, right? And I don't blame it. We talked about this earlier this year too, how Chromebooks have gotten to a point. I mean, that's basically almost 3 operating systems in one, right? Because it can run Linux. It is Linux, effectively. It has Chrome OS and all of the, fanciness that comes with that. And then you can run Android apps. And for a lot of people, that's a sweet spot. And I can understand it. In fact, was it the last episode of Sovereign Tech that we were doing, when we were, really the whole episode, we just skewered the smartphone. Okay. I mean, good old-fashioned pig roast to that thing with those, with your fondle slabs. One of the solutions really is, like, if you think there's maybe you need your online banking app, the app has very specific functionality that only your smartphone can do or whatever. One of the solutions, now not every Android app is available on Chromebooks, but most, I think, are. Okay. And often enough, it's really an artificial barrier that your app that a certain app, say, doesn't work on Chromebooks. For example, I mean, I have a Chromebook right here, for testing purposes and whatever else. Okay. For example, the PayPal app, very, very, very handy app if you use PayPal. Okay. And you can donate to the show with PayPal, bbs@sovereigntech.com. Woo, that's the email address. Anyway, thank you if you do. It's much needed. But like the PayPal app. So the PayPal app, you can't install it on Chromebooks. It's stupid, but you can't. Or at least you can't install it on all of them. And some things vary based upon whether or not the Chromebook has a touchscreen or not. But regardless, okay, you can install the PayPal business app. And that has most of the features that your stock, PayPal app has. But my point being is that if the PayPal business app works on a Chromebook, and it does, I've used it, there's no reason that the PayPal app shouldn't work on a Chromebook. But a Chromebook is a solution if you're wanting to get away from smartphones, but you need just that certain app or whatever. A Chromebook is, frankly, a great solution because it gets you away from the constant just metadata collection from all the sensors built into a smartphone. Okay, you could say the information on a Chromebook's all still going to Google, and if you feel that way, you feel that way, and you're probably not wrong. All right. But, I mean, and we know that there's certain aspects of the operating system where, yes, everything you fucking type is going to Google. Okay. But it does change your mindset about using a smartphone. Okay. But it still has those apps that you need. And it doesn't collect all the metadata that the 30 sensors inside the, this little black mirror that you call a smartphone has in it. So, I mean, that's an option. I wanted to mention it in last week's episode, but I didn't get the opportunity to do so. But, a Chromebook, I mean, maybe the reason that people are so hot about Chromebooks is, I mean, certainly it's partly because that operating system is made for the modern way that people interact with the internet, right? Like YouTube and so many other things work so well on a Chromebook. I mean, there's just, it's, and like the security is really great. It boots up quickly. I mean, it's a very simple OS to use. Yet if you want to go deep with it by, getting into the terminal, installing Linux apps, like LibreOffice or whatever else, I mean, it has that there too, right? But I think a lot of people are probably going to Chromebooks because, frankly, like, I mean, when Chromebooks first came out, I had one then. And I've seen, and I've had one pretty successively where I get to see, some of the more dramatic changes. But frankly, the changes, while they're dramatic from a few years ago when they first came out, look, that was almost a decade ago, if not a decade ago. While it's different from then, sure, but that's a 10-year time span. But by and large, not that much has changed. And if anything, it's just allowing the operating system to do more. It's not putting in a bunch of bullshit features, right? I mean, fuck Google, but, credit where it's due. The Chromebook is really the operating system for the masses and for the modern internet. I'm not saying I like that. That's not the kind of operating system I want, but I get it. And maybe Chromebooks are so popular because people are just fucking tired of Windows and of everything, constantly changing on them when there's just a couple things that they want to do on their computer and then they want to go back about their day. And I mean, but the thing is I get it. And I dare say using a Chromebook is probably better than using a Windows machine for most people. It's certainly more secure, and we're all about security on this show. Okay. And if it's security that they don't really have to think about, like they might have to do more so with Windows, I'm fairly supportive of that. Okay. But what I really want people is getting into the nitty-gritty of how computers work and really using a computer. And I think we've got to get them at least on Linux for that. We're not going to get them to BSD, as much as that would be beautiful, but we got to get them on Linux. So, but it looks like we're at that point where people have really had enough, and Windows has become a joke once again. I mean, people used to joke about Windows all the time and all the bullshit that it used to do. But then, with Windows XP, which, worked, I mean, again, giving credit where it's due, okay? I mean, I've been a Linux user for over, yeah, almost 20 years. I mean, it's almost as long as there's been Linux. But credit where it's due, Windows XP was an amazing operating system. Windows 7 was just, XP2, effectively. Forget about Vista and Windows 8. But there was a time where people were like, oh, no. Yeah, I mean, like, I remember when Windows XP came out, folks, we are going to get into other stuff. This is a subject that I think is good to talk about. I remember when Windows XP came out and when they were announcing Vista, XP was so great. I remember me and my buddies were like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm going to be the first kid on the block with Windows Vista. Because Windows wasn't a joke anymore, after XP. I mean, even though I think Windows 2000 was fine for Windows, it was great for Windows, okay? We got past 98, we got past ME, we got past all that bullshit. Windows wasn't the joke. It was serious, and XP did the business. But now we're back to the point where Windows is a joke again. And me, this time around, I couldn't be happier. So if you haven't yet, start having, I mean, it's the holidays. I wish I told you to do this over Thanksgiving, but it's the holidays. Start telling people, hey, have you thought about using Linux? How's your computer doing for you? And I mean, we're the people, you, the listeners, Sovereign Tech listeners, you are ahead of the curve. I mean, you're far more than in tech. You're also ahead of the curve socially, but you're ahead of the curve. Okay. And you are, all of you, I don't like this word, influencers, but I don't like thought leaders either, but you get my point. You are those. Start using that ability of yours, okay, to help us all be more secure and to stop all the fucking headaches that come along with this shit show of an operating system that really affects us all, even people who, you know, the ones who know what the fuck we're doing when we get in front of a keyboard. So anyway, before we get into our main story, and we've got a doozy here, I want to tell you about a Sovryn Tech sponsor, Vault Toro. Okay, that's V-A-U-L-T, like vault, because it's a vault, and then oro, O-R-O, because oro is, guess what, Spanish for gold. So can you guess what this is about? Oh, maybe you can guess, but you might not know everything that it's about. Vault Toro is, look, this is the way you get to invest in crypto assets, right? Cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, go down the list. All right, this is how you can invest in crypto assets, but you can hedge them with gold if you want to. What a great option. I want you go to Vaultoro. Okay, again, it's Vault and Oro. Vault, VAULTORO.com. I want you to go there. You can open up a gold wallet in seconds. Make it happen. Okay, then start looking at all the cryptocurrency options. Bitcoin, whoo, and start playing around. I mean, just no matter what side of the situation you are in blockchain, there's something for you at Vaultoro. Okay, so I want you to go Vaultoro.com, start getting engaged. This blends the physical with the digital. It is a beautiful way to get involved in the blockchain space. Go to Vaultoro.com, check out everything they've got to offer, and they have a lot to offer. Okay, whether you're investing, whatever you're doing, okay, check it out. You're going to love it. All right, Vaultoro.com, get over there, make it happen. And I mean, they have all kinds of projects going on. Like right now they have Bank to the Future. They have a fundraiser going on, which you've got to check this out. Okay. As soon as you go to the website, you're going to see there's a banner at the bottom. And this is something you're going to want to get involved with. Understand, this is a company that has been around since 2015. You say, well, Stallion, that was only 4 years ago. Look, in Bitcoin, in the blockchain space, it's a goddamn eternity, and you know it. All right. And these are people you can trust. I trust them. I've known them for years, and they are supporting independent voices that'll say what no one else is willing to say in this world. And that's Sovryn Tech. And you got to appreciate it for them. Check them out. Let them know that the Golden Stallion told you about them. They're going to know exactly who you're talking about. So go, again, you tell them about the Golden Stallion, and then you get golden at Vaultoro when you open your gold wallet. Go for it. Vaultoro.com. VAULTORO.com. Now, that said, something that, and this is a conversation we had maybe a couple episodes ago, I have been very supportive for years before the space really picked up. Okay, in fact, I can think of episodes from 7 years ago, very early number, double-digit episodes, where I talked about how I can't wait for the virtual reality space to really become a thing again, and that there would be attempts, and that that it probably would this time around. We've kind of got this figured out, and so we've been covering VR and AR and MR, even though a lot of those terms have all sort of fallen away. We've been covering this space for some time, and we talked a couple weeks ago about how really I have, frankly, lost confidence in present virtual reality efforts. And we talked about why. Again, you can listen to the past couple episodes where I cover all that. But the main reason is that John Carmack, who, another hero of mine, and developer of course, he co-developed Doom with John Romero, just a brilliant guy, in the entire computing industry. But he walked away, and he was one of the lead guys. He was chief technical officer, but he was one of the lead guys involved with Oculus, right? Back when it was a Kickstarter, even before Facebook bought him out. And I had said that as long as John Carmack's in Oculus, I'm still interested in what the company does. Well, he's effectively left. We already had a big conversation around this. I'm not going to have that now. And to say that VR is going places that I did not want it to go, Okay, because there's places well beyond gaming that intrigued me about VR. To say it's doing that now is the understatement of the century. Now, I still think that at some point VR could be used for the genuinely beneficial aspects, not about getting you out of reality, as in the reality as in meat space, you know, that you touch with your own hands and blah, blah, blah. But basically, by using VR, okay, by using virtual reality, you could improve your reality. And I don't mean by that'd be augmented reality, right? Where, you know, there's just things floating in midair because you're wearing lenses that can show that off or something, you know, some bastardized, horrible version of Google Glass. I don't mean that. I don't mean like that. I mean that there are therapeutic uses for virtual reality. There are all kinds of amazing things that one could do with VR, okay, that would be very beneficial to actual meat space reality. That is not the direction that this space seems to be going. And like I said, it seems to have gotten worse. Here's a story from CNN. This actually got sent to me by my brother, Rob Freebeard, who does TIE Fighter Renegades with me. And here's from CNN. Again, the story is from November 27th, 2019. Russian dairy farmers gave cows VR goggles with hopes they would be happier and make better milk. You know, I'll read a little bit of the story, but just based off of the headline alone. Doesn't it say so much? Isn't this really a preview of, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is that kind of experiment. Isn't this just a preview really of where I think VR actually how it wants to go with, you know, with humans? Maybe like a Ready Player One kind of scenario, right? Let's read this here. Virtual reality isn't just for video games anymore. Stallion breaking in. I support that statement. I'm glad it's not. I have a lot of really, I can think of so many wonderful things, okay, that you could do with VR. We've talked about them over the years of what could be done with VR, where, again, it could improve your reality by allowing you to explore, well, your inner reality, you know, inside of you, right? And I don't mean biologically, you know, I mean psychologically. But regardless, let's keep reading. The technology is changing industries that many people had never thought it would, such as, check notes, dairy farming. And here you thought technology couldn't get any weirder. A farm just outside of Moscow is testing VR glasses for its cows, it says, in an effort to increase the quantity and quality of the milk produced. That's according to a news release published Monday from the Ministry of Agriculture of the Moscow region. It came accompanied by photos of a cow trying out its fancy new goggles. And folks, link is in the show notes for episode 351 of Sovereign Tech, and you can see a picture of the cow wearing these VR goggles. I'm not kidding. Let's see. They even say it here in the story. We checked the date. It's not April 1st. No, this is absolutely real. The ministry rationalizes it like this. Studies have shown that cows' environmental conditions can impact the milk produced, specifically improving its quality or increasing its quantity. So, a team of developers, with the help of veterinarians and consultants for dairy production, made some oversized VR glasses for cows. They adapted the human versions to account for cows' different head shapes and eyesight, the news release says. And then voila, cow VR glasses. And what were these cows experiencing with their new VR glasses? A wild, expansive field beneath the summer sun. A cow's virtual paradise. So far, it's unclear if the glasses have helped milk production. Further study will be needed for that. But a first test did reveal a decrease in anxiety and an increase in the emotional mood of the herd, the release said. To be fair, if we were transported to a vast field in the summertime, our anxiety and emotional mood would be better too. And you know, isn't that just like humans? You know, and I don't mean the cows are like humans. I mean, doesn't this seem like this is how we try and solve everything, right? Never striking at the root. So basically, they're saying, okay, wait, so if cows are happier, they will produce better milk, or who knows, maybe they'll be thinking, oh, the beef would be better, or whatever. You know, I mean, I know there's experiments where people play music to cows, and supposedly the beef tastes better, or there's all kinds of other things they do. Anyway, so what do? You know, instead of considering, you know, geez, maybe leaving these cows in these fucking, you know, whatever size, I don't know, 6x3 pens, and with them jacked in with their milk and and like their udders are literally blistering, and that's bleeding into, it's so bad. Instead of doing something about that, okay, instead of improving their actual real world living conditions, what do? You slap a fucking pair of VR goggles on a cow to try and improve their life. I mean, it's a fake. And I mean, the allegory is just, it's too good. It's too good for how most of humanity tries to solve anything. It's all Band-Aids. No one's actually willing to do the surgery, or no one's actually willing to make the big changes, right? Like, nobody's talking about, well, gee, maybe we should feed them better. Maybe we should let them, roam a little more free. No. Slap a pair of VR goggles on them. They won't know the goddamn difference. And I swear to fuck, like, this is the same thing that companies, right? Corporations, governments, pick your overarching body, that they do to humans. No. Don't actually give them any freedom. Don't actually improve their diet any. Don't actually like try to create an infrastructure that is conducive to human happiness. Don't try, and I mean then genuinely conducive, not a fake, not a simulation put over their eyes. No, don't do any of that. Just, put a helmet on them and pat them on the back and get them going. It's insane. I mean, when Rob shared this with me, he's like, I can't believe this isn't The Onion, or he said, I wish this was The Onion, but it's not. I mean, this is so ridiculous. Like, if there's the possibility for better milk to somehow, I mean, this is a fairly natural solution, as in it is engaging and inducing. I don't want to say inspiring, but maybe inspiring is the word, but it's inducing, or potentially, again, there's more research that has to get done, so this might all be bullshit anyway. But even though they do recognize, they can provably show that the cows have less anxiety. Okay, but if it's inducing, better milk, then that means there is a healthier way of living for that cow. Let's create the scenario, okay, like if you're that concerned, let's create the scenario where the cow can just, in its normal life, with its normal senses, what it actually sees in front of it, is actually happy instead of faking it out. But we're not going to do that, because we don't do anything like that. No one's willing to put in the hard work, even with cows, even in farming. I mean, I could go, if you want to go really far, I could say, well, fuck, the agricultural revolution fucking ruined everything for humanity, and clearly for the cows. But, I mean, this is just, it feels, you can say it's crazy of me to say, but if you think whatever I'm about to say, or whatever comes out of my mouth in this episode, you think I'm nuts? No, the fucking nut jobs are the people putting VR goggles on fucking cows. If you think any differently, in fact, right under my desk. Okay, you want to get under the desk? I offer that. If you want to get under my desk, there's a pair of the Oculus Go, one of the higher ends Oculus Go, or with the larger hard drive. It's for you. Take it, because that's clearly the world you want to live in, not in actual reality. You don't actually want to do the hard work that it takes to live a better, genuinely happier, less anxious, or less anxiety-inducing life, okay? And that starts with changing your surroundings, working on your health, okay? Mental, physical, emotional. And just slap on a pair of VR goggles if you think what I'm saying is crazy. But I'm telling you, this, and this is what you're going to, and if anybody thinks anything I say is crazy, this is probably going to be it. I think this is a preview of where Oculus and other companies are looking to go and hoping to go. Well, and even this even speaks to, we were mentioning HoloLens earlier with Microsoft. I was initially very supportive of that because I could see the opportunities for, in engineering and other things to develop when you have a completely holographic space, or, a completely virtual space within which to design and build things. And that's really cool. But I don't know if it's going to go there. I think companies would enjoy it much more if they could just slap you into a cubicle like a cow, moo, fucking herd, slap you in there, and then they put on they put HoloLens on you or the VR headset or whatever, and you think you're in such a beautiful, wonderful space, and as long as the chair is comfy, right? Isn't it OSHA's always worried about, right, when they go into a workplace? OSHA's always freaking out, like, do they have the right posture? Are they sitting okay? When they're not doing anything about the fact that people are in these tiny little fucking cubicles, or they're so packed in with so many other people that the tension is just riding so high in these workspaces. Oh no, well, we got a solution for you. Just tell them to put on an Oculus Quest or, Oculus Workspace. I'm sure, I bet that's already trademarked. Put on the Oculus Workspace and away you go. Completely out of touch with reality. You can work completely on your own. Maybe you're going to run into somebody else's, RSI, like in the Matrix, residual self-image or something like this, and you kind of interact with them, but then there's no actual reality. Next thing you know, you probably stop fucking and you're doing like Demolition Man, where, remember when Stallone in that? What's her name? The actress there, Sandra Bullock. And she's saying, it's like, would you like to have intercourse or whatever? And they put on the headsets and Stallone finally takes it off. He's like, it's like sex. It's like, I haven't even touched you yet. And I think that this is early stages testing of it eventually getting to that point. There's that classic picture where at an Oculus event, where all the journalists, everybody is sitting down, this is at a Facebook event, / Oculus. They're all sitting down, they all have the headsets on, and Mark Wahlberg is just walking with a smug-ass look on his face. He's walking down the aisle, right? And, I mean, it looked like it was such a creepy picture, because it was basically showing like that that all these people are just part of the herd. They're just the cows. Moo! Right? And then you have your leaders who they exist in actual reality and are just walking all over you. It was so creepy. And I feel like this is absolutely pointing at that. They're testing it. This is classic stuff. And just about anything that goes to market, right? They test it on the animals first. And I'm not saying I'm supportive of that, but they test it on the animals first. I'm certainly not supportive of this. It's crazy. But this is where they're going. Are they going to put VR goggles on everything? They're going to put it on chickens? Like, is there even going to be a reality that people will get to experience? It's a problem. You should look at this, even if you're okay with it. Even if you're like, you know what? Wow, that's pretty ingenious. That's pretty damn clever. I'll admit it. I would have never thought of putting VR goggles on a cow, because I would just be more interested in giving the cow the best space that it can. And look, there's advantages to that. In fact, one of my favorite books of all time is, what is it? Like An Acre in the Family Cow or something like that. Or, yeah, it's something along those lines, where basically if you just have one cow and, 1 acre of land, you could be, or those are cornerstones of having kind of a more country self-sustaining life or something like that. It's a brilliant thing. Okay. And obviously that includes that, if you're going to have this cow help you be self-sustaining, you're not going to eat it. Okay. And so I say that, saying that, look, I'm not opposed to having a cow or having cows, but, you'd want to give it like the best possible life that it can, right? Why not? Just like I'd hope you'd want to do for other human beings as well. But no. No one's interested in doing that. They just want to band-aid the whole thing or take you completely out of reality. They just want to slap that VR headset on you and, say, get to work. Here, maybe they'll be happier if they're all wearing HoloLens and they'll production levels will go up or whatever the fuck will happen. That's all that matters to you people. Can they produce more? I was listening to, ironically, an Audible original. It's called The Burnout Generation. It's not even 2 hours long. It was very, very interesting, though, talking about how people, with this always on and the way that work even gets done, it's not fulfilling. Not only that is it not fulfilling, but you are so on all the time that people are burning out en masse. And it ain't just millennials, folks. Drop that horse shit. But people are absolutely, they are burning out. And they're talking about how, a lot of research suggests that And a lot of numbers suggest that quote-unquote millennials, believe me, I don't like using that word either. I'm one of them. I'm a millennial, you understand, okay? But that millennials are inheriting a economy and basically a world worse than the previous generation. That hasn't been true for a very long time. It is becoming true. And, you see something like this and I think, well, fuck yeah, they are. Things aren't getting better when we're slapping VR goggles on cows. Anyway, that's it for this for this segment. We'll be right back. Not that things are going to get any better, but we'll be right back with HackSec and some more Sovryn tech. Woo! Hey, if you have a project that needs reliable cryptocurrency data, check out blocktap.io. Blocktap.io is a universal cryptocurrency API. You can get historical prices for Bitcoin and other digital assets that you can use to build charts and do market analysis. Blockchain data is also indexed, so you can get transaction statistics, address balances, and more for Bitcoin and other networks. Blocktap.io is free for personal use, and you don't even need to create an account to access the API. To get started, try some of the example queries on the homepage at blocktap.io. Again, that's blocktap.io. Blocktap.io. And we thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
HackSec.
I'm reminded. There's an episode of The Next Generation, Star Trek, obviously, where basically someone says to Riker, you don't seem to be the kind of man that needs a holodeck to have a good time. That's the basic gist of it. And I hope that we all stay that way. Doesn't mean, again, I think there could be genuinely beneficial uses for virtual reality that have to do with therapy. That could be amazing thing. And more, and certainly plenty of good times to be had. Okay. But we got to keep a very, very firm grasp on reality. Really do. A great way to take the pulse of reality is I want you to check out a Sovryn Tech sponsor, that being Free Talk Live. You can go to freetalklive.com. This is the number 27 talk show in the United States. Even though governments are a fiction, but in the geographic area known as the United States, it is the number 27 talk show, and in fact, it is an open phones call-in show, so you can call into it 7 nights a week. It runs 3 hours a night, so you're going to get your chance at some point, and it's been going for over 10 years. And what a great way to listen to, what are people thinking right now? You got to listen to these callers. For one, the hosts are great too, but you got to listen to the callers. Holy hell. Or be one of them. And bring up some of this stuff. Get this out there. Again, we're talking about the number 27 talk show in the United States. Your voice is going to get heard. Start talking about this stuff. Engage. There's a next generation thing for you. Anyway, go to freetalklive.com. You get to check it out. And of course, all of their archives are there. And you have so much to listen to just in a week, to say nothing of years past. Go for it. freetalklive.com. And I thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Now, let's get into HackSec. Of course, we talk issues of hacking and security and privacy often enough. And we've got a story here from Vice that actually got sent to me on Twitter by a great listener. And here we go. The California DMV is making $50 million a year selling drivers' personal information. The subheader here, a document obtained by Motherboard shows how DMVs sell people's names, addresses, and other personal information to generate revenue, by Joseph Cox. This is from November 25th, 2019. Now, and I think the story references it actually, but in September of this year, early in September, this story broke as well. I think at that time I had read it on CNBC, but basically that, yes, it has been discovered that DMVs are absolutely selling your information basically to the highest bidder. It's not something that, if it was within the government, well, A, they shouldn't have to sell it, obviously, because it's all government, right? But B, it wouldn't surprise anybody. But the idea that, and this is just another element of corporatism, but the idea that the DMV is taking your info and then, creating this huge database of all these people and then selling that off to who the fuck knows. Shouldn't that be seen as a problem? Don't you usually, I bet you usually expect that at the very least, while the information collected about you by the government is certainly going to be used by the government and most likely against you, that wouldn't surprise you. But the idea that the government shares its information with third parties, I mean, who knows who the hell owns those third parties, right? Where does that information ultimately go? That's a bit of a problem. Let's read a little bit of the story and let's talk about it. The California Department of Motor Vehicles is generating revenue of $50 million a year through selling drivers' personal information, according to a DMV document obtained by Motherboard. DMVs across the country, in the United States, of course, are selling data that drivers are required to provide to the organization in order to obtain a license. So this isn't even optional. You have to give this stuff over if you want to drive, and that's a fine thing to want to do. This information includes names, physical addresses, and car registration information. California's sales come from a state which generally scrutinizes privacy to a higher degree than the rest of the country. In a Public Record Acts request, Motherboard asked the California DMV for the total dollar amounts paid by commercial requesters of data for the past 6 years. The responsive document shows the total revenue in financial year 2013-2014 as $41.5 million before steadily climbing to $52 million in the financial year 2017-2018. The document doesn't name the commercial requesters, but some specific companies appeared frequently in Motherboard's earlier investigation that looked at DMVs across the country. They included data broker LexisNexis and consumer credit reporting agency Experian. Motherboard also found DMVs sold information to private investigators, including those who are hired to find out if a spouse is cheating. It is unclear if the California DMV has recently sold data to these sorts of or these sorts of entities. So basically, we don't exactly know who it is. But then the ones we do know, private investigators, again, looking into your life, being hired, by private individuals and everything. I mean, that should terrify the fuck out of you. Okay, but we don't even, some of the other companies that we do know are companies, say, similar to Equifax and others, who have had massive data leaks. Massive data breaches on their servers of not even data that's necessarily by, customers or consumers or people that, that have interacted with Equifax, but everybody else. In fact, sometime now I think we have some idea of when, I guarantee you Google's buying up this, I can't say that for certain, but I think it's a pretty safe bet. Google's probably buying some of this information. And this is another piece of that puzzle where, if you remember the Forbes story that we talked about earlier, where how did Google associate this writer for Forbes with his grandfather, who never got online, never had a Google account, never got on the internet, never had a smartphone, never had any of that horseshit? How did they end up getting associated? They shouldn't even necessarily know his name. Okay, we covered this a couple months ago. And we referenced it again on episode 350 of Sovereign Tech. This is another piece of that puzzle, is that if they are buying DMV information, well, they're probably, I imagine they are acquiring some of that information that could do that attachment. So how some of these companies have information by people who have never been users, well, most people at some point interact with the DMV. And look, we're just talking about one government organization. Can you imagine how many actually engage in this? I'm sure it's more than the DMV. What is the post office doing to make an extra buck? I wonder. How are they getting close to solvent again? If so, what in fact, this is a funny thing. Little side comment here, okay? Amazon. I saw, and understand, I'm in New Hampshire, okay? And, a lot of the advancements, shall we say, that you would expect, like in California, for example, and other places, take maybe another decade or so to get here. And I'm not making fun of New Hampshire. I think that's a damn good thing if it's true. But it's really not, because we have, the Silicon Mill Yard here. We're close to Boston, where there's plenty of advancements. But regardless, I was amazed to see in fairly rural New Hampshire at that, to see it was like one of those Dodge Sprinter vans, that it was this weird color of blue, this weird shade of blue. And it had the Amazon Prime, the Amazon symbol like across the side of it. It was a delivery truck. But it was an Amazon delivery truck. It wasn't UPS, wasn't FedEx, wasn't USPS. It was an Amazon delivery truck. Okay, and I say this to suggest that it's not like the post office, is doing more and more business with Amazon or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they are selling off tons of data that they have, even though all of that's supposed to be highly protected. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's something in the charter of the DMV that said that this was basically possible. I mean, later on in the story you can read, and including the story that came out in September, legislatures, were freaking out. Like, wait, this is going on? How is this even possible? And basically a lot of DMVs said they were going to stop doing it. But then there was no criminal case made against them. And that leads me to suggest that somehow this is possible. Granted, the DMV existed long before, the internet. So maybe the charter for the DMV never came up with this idea that, well, you could sell information that gets stored electronically. Well, I guess that fits in with much of the way the government thinks about, about digital information, about data. Okay. But this is a problem. I mean, boy, that Amazon truck's a whole other fucking story. I mean, I don't even want to know what kind of metadata that thing, and I bet it does, the information that collects, right, and gives that to Amazon. But that's besides the point. The DMV doing this, I mean, doesn't the government always make these claims that you have reasonable expectations of privacy? Don't they go after Facebook for Facebook, handing over information to third parties without, customer or client consent? Even though, Facebook would say, oh, well, actually, these people kind of agreed that we could do whatever the fuck we want to them. Did somehow we agree to that with the government? And if we did, don't you have a problem with that? You should. Did you know that going to the DMV, handing over information that you have to hand over to get your driver's license, that you are effectively handing this information over to all kinds of quote-unquote supposedly private third parties? Are you okay with that? You want to say this is some kind of government flub? If it's a government flub, it just proves the point. The government has no idea how to handle the modern world that we live in, and that the government is just as unprepared for the level of technology that we have as, frankly, all of humanity is. That's an issue. This is, again, it doesn't really surprise me, okay? And again, some DMVs are, now they're supposedly putting the kibosh on this. They'll probably just hide it better, frankly. But supposedly they're putting the kibosh on this. But this goes to show, okay, and goes to, as far as like, well, what's the solution here? Yeah, I get it. You have to drive. And I understand that. And I'm not telling you, what are those people? In fact, it's a very unfortunate name, sovereign citizens, right? Whatever, who they think that they have admiralty law on their side and that they can effectively do whatever the hell, they want, and they can just drive on the road and they don't need permission and blah, blah, blah. I'm not telling you to go and get interested or involved or do any of that. It's not what I'm saying at all. Okay. As far as actual solutions, though, one thing that I want to recommend to you is that I want you to get in the habit. Because I know I've been at DMVs, I've been at all kinds of places where people just fill in every little box that they have no concern, no interest in researching. Wait a minute, to get what I want, how much information do I really have to hand over? People used to think this way, and I've brought this up many times, where when you'd go to Radio Shack in the 80s and earlier too, but when you'd go there, they'd ask you for, or even Sears, they'd ask you for all this information. Okay. And, can we add you to our, at the time, a literal, like as in mail, as in snail mail, mailing list or something like that. And I remember watching people going, well, what do you want that information for? And people would freak the fuck out because they didn't know what you would end up doing with that information. Somehow we got duped. A lot of people got duped into, oh, yeah, I just got to hand over, or yeah, I'll just hand over this information, fine, whatever, it's protected, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. Not even within the government, even though that shouldn't surprise anybody. Okay? We need to get back to that. to where we give people, when someone asks us for our information, we give them a hard time, or we become knowledgeable enough in just how much data do we really have to hand over. Okay. Now with the DMV, I mean, some of that, is spelled out, right? In that, okay, this is what you're required to hand over. You have to get so many points to be able to qualify to apply for a driver's license. Okay. But keep that to a bare minimum. Some people go into DMVs, and I've seen this too, where they go in there basically with, you remember the term we used a couple episodes ago, an orgy of evidence, right? They come in with as much stuff and they just start tossing it all on the desk of the DMV. Here, see, yeah, I live at this place, blah, blah, blah. And they're trying to prove that they are some kind of a person, right? And it's crazy. Well, let's stop that. Let's give them a fucking hard time, because they don't give a rat's ass about us and our information. They just sell it off willy-nilly. That's a solution. We have to start thinking. This is a very practical solution. Okay? You can't encrypt this stuff from the DMV. I'm not, there's nothing like that. But you need to know that this is happening. You need to demand better. Okay, if you're into that sort of thing. But then most importantly, change your mindset to where handing over information, even uttering where you live and things like this, is something that you only do under some kind of compulsion, and it's not everyday parlance. It's not something you just give to Nordstrom or to JCPenney or whoever, and you sure as fuck, if you can help it, you don't give it to government agencies if you can help it. We've got to get back to that. You've got to start caring about your information, because you have no idea. Don't say, well, I mean, it's just going to be given to Google, or, well, it's the DMV, it's the government. Of course they're going to have it. No. You don't know who else is getting it because of that. Make a stink about it. And that way you can have the cultural change, which is the only real solution to any of this stuff. Anyway, we'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. We got a doozy. We're not going to be able to get into this week in blockchain, but got a doozy of a review to get into. But man, if you ever needed more reasons to hate the DMV, well, you just got $50 million worth of reasons to hate the fucking DMV. I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Woo! In 2014, he ran from Miami to San Francisco, raising awareness for Bitcoin and the homeless epidemic in America, and now he's doing it again. Blockchain evangelist and advocate for homeless rights Jason King is running across North America right now, from Miami to Santa Monica, right now. 5 years later, his commitment to promoting blockchain technology and fighting the homeless epidemic in America is stronger than ever. And you can help Jason now by going to blockchainacrossamerica.com. While you're there, donate to Satoshi Forest Sanctuary Incorporated to help the homeless, along with all kinds of other ways you can help. Get involved today. blockchainacrossamerica.com. That's blockchainacrossamerica.com.
The Climax.
Speaking of cultural shifts, if you want to be a part of a cultural shift, by the way, it's time for the Climax, where I get to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about, and we're going to talk about a movie in this part of the episode. We're going to do a little review of Ford versus Ferrari. If you want to make an actual cultural shift, something you might want to consider is moving to a place with a bunch of other people who are looking to make an actual cultural shift. I did this 8 years ago, almost to the day. 8 years ago, over 8 years ago now, I moved to New Hampshire for the Free State Project. Okay, and you can go to fsp.org if you want to check out more about this. All right. I moved to the Free State Project, which is basically it's a nonprofit. It's a project, not a political organization. It's a project designed to get, well, it was 20,000 people. Anyway, yeah, basically get 20,000 people, and they've got the 20,000 signers now, okay, to move to one geographic area, and they chose New Hampshire years and years ago. to create that cultural shift, okay? And a shift towards freedom, a shift towards personal freedom, liberty in your lifetime, right? Who wouldn't want that? You should check it out, fsp.org. Get involved, okay? I moved here. Most of my friends, not all, but most of my friends have either have moved here over time or are here, or I met them here. I mean, and there's events that happen. I mean, there's hundreds of events that happen all year long, okay, where you can hang out with like-minded individuals, or at the very least, people who aren't interested in stealing from you. Isn't that comfortable? I'll say it is. And there's all kinds of ways to get involved. Amazing things, especially this time of year, the kind of projects that have been done over the years, Shire Sharing. There's all these different, to help homeless people or people who, who aren't as well off. I mean, it's really amazing the things that go on in New Hampshire with the Free State Project. Check it out. Go to fsp.org, okay, and see if you want to be a part of it. I was I was in the first 1,000. I was mover number 966. Okay, now there's thousands and thousands of people here. And, hey, if you come here, you might even be able to get to hang out with me. Hell, might even have you on the show. How about that stuff, huh? You never know, because sometimes, I'll be at a Free State Project event and, I bring the microphone and you never know who walks up. That's happened many times where just people, listeners or whatever, they just walk up there, hey, Stallion, hey, Doc Sovryn, or something like that. Next thing you know, they're on the air. It's a great time. So anyway, come here. I think New Hampshire is just one of the most beautiful places on earth. In fact, recently, I went to Michigan. In fact, this is where I saw Ford versus Ferrari, which is kind of fitting considering that movie's all about Ford, which of course, is based out of Detroit and everything. And I've been to Michigan many times. I have family in Michigan and so on. But man, it just, I love seeing the mountains. I love seeing the hills. I love seeing, all that. And you just don't get that. I mean, there's places still throughout the United States that have plenty of mountains, right? But I mean, just New England just seems to have that perfect mix. I mean, we even have a beach here. That's amazing. Right? I mean, it's only a few miles, but it's a beach in New Hampshire. Man, I had a good time there in the summer in New Hampshire. Of course, I might have talked about that on some There's Only One Underground Q&A content along with Ellen. But anyway, Ellen and I, we both went and saw Ford versus Ferrari. She enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the movie. I'll say this outright. I am going to agree, not that this should surprise, I am going to agree with Steve Gibson. Now, I don't always agree with Steve Gibson. Like he said, he felt like The Mandalorian was a kid show. I think The Mandalorian's fucking amazing, and it's farthest thing from a kid show in Star Wars, as far as Star Wars goes. But that, whatever. I respect him eminently. So, but regardless, Ford versus Ferrari, I agree. I think it's a perfect film. It's not my usual kind of film. This isn't something that I would generally see. In fact, if he didn't recommend it, I probably wouldn't have caught it. I mean, again, I like cars fine. I'm actually very knowledgeable about vehicles. I repair my own vehicles all the time, as long as they're made to where I can repair them, and I don't need multi-$1,000 tools or something. But I'm a very practical guy. Okay, so I can appreciate sports cars, certainly, but I'm not a person who half-asses things. Okay, if I want a sports car, okay, I want something that can either do in what this movie's all about, which is the development of the GT40 from the 60s. I either want the GT40 or I might as well, drive a Chevy Cavalier, right? because if you can't do, and even then, when are you ever going to be able to drive 200 miles per hour? I mean, I appreciate sports cars, but I don't necessarily see the appeal. That's just not a thing for me. For me, performance in a car is how many different types of geography can it drive on, right? What kind of topography can it drive on? Can it, I have a Jeep, and I love that, right? Because, when the snow comes down, it's snowing like crazy here in New Hampshire right now. When the snow comes down, can my car get through it, whether people, plow or not? Absolutely. Those are the kind of very practical things that I love for a car to be able to do. Is it something that's going to keep me really safe? I've been a Ford guy. I have a Jeep now, but I've been a Ford guy most of my life. My first car was a Ford Expedition that I actually lived out of when I moved to New Hampshire for the Free State Project for a good little while. I had my favorite car that I've ever owned was my 73 Ford LTD. I had a Ford 1970 1970 F100 that I just loved. Again, I mean, these are vehicles that have some kind of practicality to them. I mean, the 73 LTD, you know, the thing, like, okay, yeah, it had the Windsor engine in it, so it wasn't the fastest version of the LTD, but man, that thing drove like a couch. I mean, you're just floating on that road. It was such a beautiful drive, and you know, the hood of it was as long as I am, you know, and I don't mean 8.5 inches. I mean, you know, like, you know, over 6 feet. Ooh, sorry, did I say too much there? Anyway, the hood of it was so long. I mean, you know, you could, or so tough, you could drive through a brick wall, or there was no way that like the engine was going to be in your face. Like cars today, I mean, basically, if you hit a pebble with a modern car, there's a good chance, and I mean, like, you know, the tiniest pebble, just a few centimeters, your entire hood's probably going to be indented. It might go through your windshield, and your car just won't be drivable just because you hit a pebble. I mean, that's how shitty these things are, right? So I'm in that way, I'm a very practical guy. Okay. And so, you know, and like, you know, Corvettes being made out of fiberglass and all this, I mean, it just doesn't appeal to me. It's just not my thing, but I can still appreciate the art, and it is art, and the design, the remarkable design that goes into, you know, these vehicles. But I mean, you get my point, is that like, if somebody says, you know, is driving around in, I don't know, kind of Fast and Furious style stuff, whatever, they're driving around in some souped up Toyota Supra, right? Okay. And they're like, oh yeah, my car can go this fast, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you're full of shit, because it's not a GT90 or even a GT40 like it's in the film, or it's not a Ferrari, or it's not a Lambo, or it's not this. It's like, you know, why are you even boasting? It's not even remotely close to the best. And that's kind of how I see it. So I'm not that kind of guy. But this movie, Ford versus Ferrari, is not necessarily really a car movie. You can appreciate that. In fact, Ellen is quite the racer, okay? You know, she's done the whole, whatever, autocross, you know, she's done and she's good. Like, she has that, and it was awesome to watch this with her, because when you see the cars racing on the track, you know, I could look to and just see the fire in her eyes, you know, because she knows what it's like to be on the track and racing. And, you know, she's done that thing, and to have the shared experience and see it done so well on the screen. Because again, this is a perfect movie. The sounds are perfect. In fact, you know, it's funny. Ellen even commented on it, because when we got out of there and we hopped into the car that we were in, the rental car. She's like, this car sounds like so much shit compared to what was in the movie. And I was like, oh, you're dead on. You know, you're so right. And the amount of technological advancement, you know, with these cars. So, I mean, you can still appreciate this movie as a car movie, but it's so much more. You know, it really went to show, in fact, Shelby, because this is all about, you know, Carroll Shelby, who was a very real person, right? You know, Shelby Cobra and all this. And eventually, you know, he would be associated with the Mustang, even though Christian Bale's character, and he's played by Matt Damon in this, which Matt Damon does a great job. Christian Bale, tremendous actor, plays the very famous racer, that being Ken Miles. And Ken Miles makes fun of the Mustang initially, which, I mean, the Mustang was a very different car back in the day, you know, do understand that. I mean, now it's exclusively seen as a racer, when, you know, at one point it was really just a four-banger. That would evolve over time. But anyway, Carroll Shelby, at one point, he is talking to, the other character. It's played by John Bernthal, who did a great job as Lee Iacocca. He's talking to Lee Iacocca, and who's very much seen as like a hero in the automobile world. And he was basically the marketing guy for Ford. But anyway, he's talking to him, and he says, you know, look, Ferrari, who, you know, were winning the Le Mans, because again, that's kind of the centerpiece. The GT40 winning the Le Mans however many years in a row was you know, kind of the central conflict of this film. Ferrari was winning the Le Mans right and left. And Shelby even says to him that, you know, the guy who's the head of Ferrari, the creator of Ferrari, says, you know, he's bankrupt now. He spent everything on achieving perfection, and he did. And it just brings up, and the GT40 would, kind of best that a bit, but it does bring up, in my opinion, a point that I've made on Sovryn Tech many times, and that is that basically cars haven't actually advanced technologically at all since the 60s. Like, they just haven't improved. You could say, oh, they get better gas mileage, oh, we have computers in them that allow them to do this, blah, blah, blah. But as far as like actual design and technologies, all of that was really perfected in the 60s. The last like major change in how one experiences an automobile, and you might think this sounds crazy, but it's not. You can ask other car enthusiasts and they'll probably tell you the same, would really be the air conditioner, right? Really, like, you don't think about it, but like that was a big deal for cars. Okay. And all like the wild body designs and the fins from the 50s and all these different things. All that stuff, none of that's really been improved upon in the past. You could say putting computers in cars improved things. I would debate the exact opposite. In fact, especially in our interconnected world. And we've talked about that many times on Sovryn Tech. But this movie, I think, really goes to show that there haven't been any genuine advancements. They were advancing then, and it just tapered off. But anyway, that's besides the point. So let's talk about this movie. Let's break down, what was so great about it. I agree with Steve Gibson's assessment. This is really a movie about art, and very practical art, and just being, coming up with the absolute best, out of pure passion. And the idea that something has to have passion, and you can't be a bunch of paper pushers and, worried about profit so much and things like this to achieve, in this case, mechanical precision and perfection, was a real message in this film, and it's an important one. Shelby had to get Henry Ford II, or Deuce, as he was known, and as he gets often called in the movie, had to get him to realize, in fact, there's a hilarious moment, spoiler alerts, but whatever, it's a true story, I'm sure you know most of it, if you're interested in this sort of thing usually. But there's a point where he gets Deuce to cry, when he takes him for a drive in the car, because the guy just didn't understand what it took to achieve that kind of speed, with the GT40 going 218 miles per hour and so on, what it took. It's not your everyday car, and you can't think about it in the assembly line mentality that Henry Ford I created. You can't do that. You have to get money out of the equation. It has to be pure engineering, pure performance. And you can't think about marketing. You can't think about, cost. You can't think about all these different aspects of it. And I think that that's actually a great message. It's an underlying message that exists under a lot of really great, just great character moments, funny moments, a lot of humor, frankly, romantic moments between like Ken Miles and his wife, which I thought were great. All of this stuff, everything that you expect in a movie that also is based on, very real events. To have that message exist in that is a stunning thing, because that's a message that we've kind of danced around on Sovryn Tech for a while, and that we were talking about really at the top of this episode with Windows, and with Microsoft, like, and not just Windows, but, the entire operating system economy, right? Or the economy around operating systems, or the money, I should say, really around, which is the economy, but the money around operating systems is that it's all got to please investors and all this stuff. It's not about delivering the most secure, best, fastest user experience. It's not about making the best. It's about making what pleases investors and what sells ultimately, which selling is usually trickery. So to have that message in the movie where, look, you have to go beyond money. This has to be about passion. That's the only way you get anything done. And showing how Ferrari went bankrupt just to get to that stage. It proves that point. That financial incentives financial incentives don't win the Le Mans. Or if you want to, broaden it, financial incentives don't win the day. Only passion does. And this movie really, really hits at that. And that's where it comes in with art, because great art should always be about passion. Art defines us as a species. It really does. It's the center, in my opinion. Art is the center of our existence as human beings. And so this movie is about the human spirit. I mean, it is a perfect film. Is it my favorite film ever? No, it's not even going to get into my top 10. And mainly that more, for me, has to do with the subject matter. Like, it's not my top thing. I usually like to watch movies that are much more escapism, right? They take me away, like they take me to outer space. They give me a visual that I can't exactly experience in real life. Okay, now, or it takes me to a past that I could have never experienced. Like Gladiator, which is my favorite movie. As much as I've been to Rome and tried to experience it, you're not like really there. And so usually that's what I'm into, and those are always going to be in my, my top 10 or even top 25. But that doesn't mean that movies that are so grounded in reality can't give me the same message that I like in my top 10 films. Okay, the triumph of the human spirit and human passion and art and so on. And I mean, you can still get that, and it's here. So I can do nothing less than give this movie a 10 out of 10. The music is tremendous. Marco Beltrami, who I have been a fan of ever since I heard the score for Terminator 3. Marco Beltrami did the score for this. It was awesome. A little subdued at points, but that's because you don't want the music to overpower the sound of the engines. And boy, what a beautiful sound that is when you are hearing that perfection. I really recommend catching this in theaters because you're going to want to hear it with the great sound, unless you have a great sound system at home, and if you do, awesome. But the acting was tremendous. Christian Bale, easily one of the best actors we've got today. I mean, he was a tremendous Batman. His work in Equilibrium, American Psycho, I mean, two of my top films, along with, The Mechanic. This is a guy who'll do whatever it takes to bring a character to life. I thought he was just fantastic in not playing, like the muscle-bound hero that he can easily pull off if he wants. But, if you ever saw The Mechanic, that's a movie from like a decade ago. If you ever saw The Mechanic, that he'll do whatever it takes to look like whatever the movie needs. And I think he really delivered on this with the character of Ken Miles. Matt Damon, he's Matt Damon. Like, I can think some of what Matt Damon does is absolutely fucking ridiculous. But there are plenty of Matt Damon movies that I have enjoyed over the years. And, this is one where, he hit it. Everybody was delivering with this film. Every actor, even the guy playing Henry Ford II, was that Tracy Letts, fantastic. Again, John Bernthal was just dynamite as Iacocca. Everybody was on. The gal playing Molly, Ken Miles's wife, she was great. Everybody was just great in this. And again, it had the full spectrum. There's even points where it was sexy. It was funny. It had it. It's got everything. And it's a movie that takes place in the 60s, so the special effects aren't that big of a deal, but they're there and they work. And I'm sure there's a lot more CGI in it than we would want to know. But whatever they did, it made it happen. The direction, great dialogue, everything just felt right, and you were instantly transported to that time, and you were instantly transported onto the track. And and it was so damn funny at points. Laugh out loud kind of stuff, which doesn't happen often for me in movies, but this had it. And the other thing I like about it is that it's one of those movies where you expect it to end, say like at the Le Mans, but then it keeps going, and it gives you a complete picture, which we also don't always get. And often some movies overstay their welcome. This is one where you like the characters so much and you just appreciate so much of what's going on. It's great that you get that very, very complete picture and you get a cohesive whole. And it delivers. So this is a 10 out of 10 film. It is a perfect film. There is nothing wrong with it at all. It has been a long time since I've been able to say that I've seen a 10 out of 10 film. But this is one of them. This is absolutely one of them. Even if you're not into cars, I guarantee you're going to enjoy this movie. It's that much fun. And it has such a great underlying message about the importance of art and passion, and that how if you want to be the absolute best, and if you want to approach anything remotely like perfection, You've got to get money out of the way. You've got to get all the corporatists and all this other nonsense out of the way, and you just got to do it for the love of what you're doing. And, you got to have that triumph of the human spirit, and it's just there. And, oh, man, did it deliver on that. All while being funny and everything else. And it being a true story. Tremendous. Tremendous film. I don't know why I feel like comparing it to Rocky, but I do. I'm not sure, because Rocky isn't exactly it's not a true story, but I mean, it's kind of based off of one, right? And kind of, obviously there wasn't like really a Rocky, but you get my point. For some reason, it kind of reminded me of that. Like it's in that same kind of vein. Okay, and I mean like the first Rocky movie, which wasn't like the comic book formula that I loved, but that 3, 4, and everything else would do. Something about it just made me think that the whole time, and I really respected and appreciated it. Again, 10 out of 10 film. I don't know if this is like an Oscar. I mean, I don't give a shit about the Oscars. I don't know if this is Oscar nominated. If it is, it should win. Like, it really should win. Everybody should just take. Marco Beltrami can take best score this year. That's fine. Even though I've heard some good scores this year. Rock and roll. Because it was that good. So Ford versus Ferrari. If you want to catch something in theaters, I mean, like Terminator's already out of theaters. So many movies are already out. Of course, we have episode 9 coming up in like 3 weeks. That's hard to believe. But in the meantime, if you want to catch something cool, this is the movie to watch. I was so impressed by this. So Ford versus Ferrari, 10 out of 10 film. Absolutely. Ellen enjoyed the fuck out of it too. I mean, it was so much fun in the theater. So anyway, that'll be it for this episode of Sovryn Tech. We'll wrap this baby up, and more Sovryn Tech, actually a lot more Sovryn Tech to come up over the next, some episodes, just some subjects that I'm just dying to get out there, some really, really great subjects, and so we need to do some extra episodes. We're going to get those babies out. And but this one will wrap up. I will see all of you on the other side. Make sure you frequent the sponsors of the show. We thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech, and go to Zomia1.com if you want to hear more content. Sign up for the Zomia 1 Underground. Believe me, it's a great time. I will see all of you again on the other side. Woo!
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.